All right. Well, good morning and welcome, everyone. My name is Oliver Blue, and I am your guide, your host this morning for this workbook lesson number 119. As we are getting close to the end of this third review period, in which we are reviewing workbook lesson 91 through 110. And today, our review sessions will include workbook lesson 107 and 108. And these were very, very important lessons and ideas that were shared in those two workbook lessons. So we get to review those today. As I always said, that these lessons are being provided by Truly Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that is devoted and dedicated to the sharing of advanced spirituality. And so we invite you to join us on this journey as we are, again, on day 119 of 365 days of mind training out of A Course in Miracles. And it is something to behold. And hopefully that you are continuing to take each daily lesson, practice each daily lesson, and become the beneficiary of the truth that is true always within these workbook lessons, so that your light will shine even brighter, that your mind will be in complete harmony with your true nature, which is love. You are love. I am love. We all are love. And it is so important that we capture and embrace that truth. So, workbook lesson 107. What a lesson that was. Oh my goodness. And the idea that we focused on in workbook lesson 107 focused on the subject or the topic of truth. And it says, truth will correct. Truth will correct all errors in my mind. Notice now, the subject here is truth and mind. And it is the truth or the reality, I like to say, that is the only thing that can correct the error that is in my mind or in our mind. And you might say, well, I don't have any error in my mind. Well, I applaud you if there's no error in your mind. But for the other 8 billion of us, we have experienced error. We have experienced that which is not true. We have experienced false beliefs. We have substituted what is real for what is unreal. We've had these experiences. We've had some pain and some suffering in our experience here as a human being. And so in order for that to be corrected, it has to be corrected, not in the body, but it doesn't need to be corrected in our situations, circumstances, or in our conditions. Those can never be corrected because those are fleeting, transitory, changing perceptions and illusions that have no constancy in them at all. They have no certainty in them at all. And so therefore, to attempt to correct situations, circumstances, and conditions is, again, it's like swinging at the wind. Because these are the effects. An effect can never be fixed. What needs and can be fixed is cause. And the cause has to do with the error in our minds, the error that was generated by perceptions that the mind has learned through the events of our life and the history of the world. That's where these errors come from. And we embrace these erroneous ways of thinking, erroneous ways of perceiving. We adapt these as our own. They become our own personal beliefs. And all this happens within a mind that believes that it is separate and apart from its creator. A mind that's separate and apart from reality. And so today's idea that truth will correct. Notice now, it didn't say it can or might. It said it will correct. Why does it say it will correct? Because there's a promise that was made by God, that was made by our creator, that every mind will eventually come home. Every mind will eventually come to himself, like the prodigal son came to himself and say, I will go back to my father's house. So eventually every dreaming mind, every illusionary mind, every mind that ventures out into fantasies, every mind that gives itself over to vain imaginings, every mind that hallucinates with an idea of separation, with an idea of individuation or individuality, every mind that dabbles in division will eventually, it's a promise of God. It's called salvation. Salvation is God's promise and God's guarantee that all minds will come home. All minds will eventually relax or wake up from the dream. All minds will become to recognize that the separation never happened. All minds will come to have this universal experience of what we call enlightenment, where it will come to a point of recognition of the truth. That is the guarantee. And so truth will correct. It will correct. Why? Because it's only one will, and that's God's will. Many are the plans that are in a man's heart. Many of the plans are in humanity to further hold the lie, to further perpetuate the lie. But it's only God's purposes that shall prevail. That is a wisdom statement that's in the book of Proverbs. Many are the plans. Many are the devices. Many are the errors in a man's heart. But it's only the purposes of God. It's only the plan of God. It's only the function of God that shall prevail over time. Timelessness will prevail over time. Formlessness will prevail over form. Reality will prevail over unreality. You can guarantee it. You can put your last dollar on it. When the creator of all that there is, and all that there has been, and all that there will be, could find no greater than itself, it swore by its own self. It couldn't find nothing greater to be a guarantee to what is reality. So it was its own guarantee. Truth is its own guarantee. God is its own guarantee. Love is its own guarantee. And not only did it swear, but it made an oath. It made an oath with himself, or itself. Love did. God has made an oath with himself. That all that he has created, he shall lose nothing. Absolutely, positively nothing. And so truth will correct all error. Remember now, truth doesn't correct sin, because in truth there is no sin. Sin is a part of the error. The belief that sin is real, the belief that the idea that separation can occur, and that there requires a payment. There's a requirement for a payment. There's a requirement for a sacrifice. That is not a true idea. That's not a true reality. That is a man-made, separated concept that we made up. And we applied the concept to have a relationship with God. As though God is some type of ego that can be hurt, or can be damaged, or can be changed, or can be altered. And so for doing that, we have to pay penance in order to get back into right standing. That is a man-made idea. That's where we have made God into our image. That's where we have made God into our likeness. At least in our minds, because it's impossible to do that. We're talking about the changeless, the formless, the timeless, the eternal. We're talking about that which is birthless and deathless. We're talking about that which is one law, the law of love, that which creates only like himself, that which is pure and whole and complete, that which is infinite intelligence, that which is all in all, that which is, and there is nothing else. That is what we're talking about. And it can't be penetrated by anything other than itself. And God is light. And in God there is no darkness. And so the whole idea of darkness, separation, penance, sacrifice, the whole idea of God having emotions and being angry, and God being jealous, all these are where we have made God into our own image and our own likeness. And I know a lot of these ideas we get from what they call sacred books. But you got to understand that a lot of times in those sacred writings, you have the writer expressing his experience. And what he's expressing is true in the sense that this is the experience that he had, or this is the way that he thought. But what is not true about it is that what he was thinking was not the truth. He had made God into his own image. He had made of God an unloving father. A lot of these writers in some of these sacred books, they made of God an unloving father based on what their perception. And so they are statements of truth in that they may have said it or experienced it that way, but it's not a true statement in the sense that they were operating out of fear, out of judgment, out of condemnation. They were operating out of a place of unreality. And so that's been handed down as what? This is the truth. This is sacred. This is the way God is. And that was passed down to generation to one day there was one that showed up on the planet, and they named him Jesus Christ. Or not Jesus Christ, they named him Jesus of Nazareth. Because Christ is not a name. Christ is an idea of what God created. And Jesus came with a different idea. Jesus came with a different message. Jesus had a different experience. And in that experience, Jesus, who came to know the truth about himself and about his creator, walked in that truth. And by him walking in that truth, it caused others to take a look at the error that they were walking in. Or it exposed the error that all humanity was walking in terms of their concept about themselves and their idea about their creator. Jesus came and said, what? Look at here, guys, girls. We are gods. We are made in the image and likeness of our Father. Our Father is light only. In him there is no darkness. There is no separation. In fact, who God is, that's who I am, and that's who we are. He said, I and my Father are one. He said, when you see me, you have seen the Father. He said that the Father has given me power to forgive sin. Forgive the idea or the error of sin consciousness. In fact, he said, I'm the light of the world. And then he turned around and said, what? He said, you are the light of the world. Because what? You and I are the same. We are one. We're brothers. We're sisters. We're brothers. We're one. We're in the family of God, which eventually it was called Christ. He said, we become the saviors of the world. We are the one with the light of the world. We're the one that help to point people to the true reality and to come away from the error of their thinking. So his whole life was a revelation of our true identity as one with God, as perfect creations of God, as the unchangeless, as the timeless, formless beings that God was. That's why when he said things like, what? Before Moses was, I was. And it was like, you can't be before Moses. Moses was hundreds of years ago. But see, they didn't understand. They walked in a perception. They walked in an understanding that was erroneous. It was erroneous thinking. And so here come Jesus with a revelation of who we really are. And his revelation came to correct all error that was in our mind or in the minds of humanity. But he was rejected. You know the story. Even to the point that those that were in what we call, highfalutin or high positions in religious community, they ordered his death because what? His truth, or the truth that he walked in, or the truth that he brought to humanity, was a threat to what they have known. It was a threat to their era. And here we are 2,000 years plus replaced from that. And majority of humanity still walks in that era. The belief in separation still walks in an awareness that is unreal. Still believes in sacrifices and a requirement for penance. Still believe that God requires us to offer sacrifices because we need to make it right. We did something wrong. We were successful in separating from God. We still see that as part of our culture, part of our communities. And people continue to suffer. People continue to search for happiness and joy and peace in places that they are not, only to be disappointed. And so here we are again in 2022, bringing out the reality that the truth of our identity, the truth of our oneness with God, will correct all errors in our mind on the same mission that Jesus the Christ had. And so this has been offered to us in this workbook lesson 107 that we studied a few weeks back. And it says, I am mistaken. Notice now, it says, I am. Anytime you see the word I am, we're talking about God's perfect creation, which is us. It says, I am mistaken when I think I can be hurt in any way. when we think that we are vulnerable, when we think that uh, our body identification is the truth of who we are, which we know the body in and of itself can not only be hurt, but it can be what it can actually be destroyed or lose its what usefulness. It says, but when we think that way, we're thinking that we're body identification. But when we're thinking along the lines of truth, when we are thinking from the place of our true identity as timeless and formless beings, as eternal beings, when we think in that light, then we know that what we are invulnerable. We can't be hurt. We can't be touched. Can't be destroyed. Why? Because we are in that place of reality where there is no destruction. There is nothing but life, and life more abundantly. And so we are God's creation. This is the correct thought. This is the thought that corrects all error, that we are God's perfect creation, whose self rests safely in the mind of God. Why? Because we share the one self that God is. We share the one mind that God is. And so if that be the truth, and which it is, then we have corrected all errors that was in our minds, the error of separation. And if you look at I just want to read just a couple of lines out of 107. It is just power packed and full of ideas. It says, what can correct illusions but the truth? And what are errors but illusions that remain unrecognized? So just think, truth is always present. It can't be altered, but it can be what? It can be unrecognized and for what they are. So when errors are unrecognized, the Course calls them illusions. It's just so illusion is not like this bad word. We think of illusions like, but it is simply when we don't recognize an error. It says, where truth has entered, error disappears. They merely vanish, leaving not a trace by which to be remembered. They are gone because without belief, they have no life. So without belief in an error has no life. That's why the ego thought system itself is a belief system. It is an illusionary system of belief. And it only has the semblance of life because there is someone that has a belief in it. They're giving their energy, their power, their focus into this thought system that is not true, that is erroneous. But when truth enters, as it says here, it says all error disappear. I can remember the day back in 2008, I believe it was. Or maybe it was 2005, when I first got a hold of A Course in Miracles. And the first idea that came from the Course to me was that the separation never happened. And that was so foreign to all of my learning. That was so foreign to all of my experience. That was so foreign to my belief system. However, it was consistent with my awareness of love. It was consistent with the fact that God is light, and in God there is no darkness. And so when that truth came, I fully embraced it immediately, without any hesitation. Why? Because it was consistent with that which was true, consistent with that which was light, consistent with the loving Father. And so it was my embracing of that one truth. When it entered into my mind, it corrected a huge error that I was experiencing. It corrected a tremendous illusion that had me bound. And so that was a direct experience of what 107 is saying here. It says where truth has entered, error disappeared. It immediately disappeared. I immediately withdrew all of my credence to a false error of believing that separation was possible, even that separation was real. I immediately withdrew it. And it immediately vanished, leaving not a trace by which to be remembered. It goes on to say, it says that they are gone because what? Without belief, they have no life. So in my experience now, separation has no life. Why? Because I no longer endorse it. I no longer give credence to it. And so when we have that experience, it's called a recognition. It was but a recognition. When I recognized that separation is impossible, it corrected a lot of error within my thinking, a lot of error within my mind. And if you've been with us on this journey, here we are on day 119. We have continued to bring a recognition, bring to awareness that separation is an error, the belief in it. Separation in and of itself is nothing. But when one takes their mind and make it a belief within their own thinking, then it has power to power to deceive. It says, and so they disappear to nothingness, returning whence they came. From dust to dust they come and go, for only truth remains. Oh, that rhymes. Oh, let me read that again. It says, they are gone because without belief they have no life. And so they disappear to nothingness, returning whence they came. From dust to dust they come and go, for only truth remain. And so today, in our first review lesson, 107, truth will correct all error, all errors in our mind. Because remember, errors or mistakes, they can be corrected. They can be corrected. But see, we have been highly developed and believe that sin is real. And in the concept of sin, which man made up, sin cannot be corrected. Sin has to be atoned for, or there has to be a payment or a penance. And that's all an ego idea. There has to be a sacrifice. And these are errors because God requires not a sacrifice. So that corrects a tremendous amount of error that's been in our mind. So can you imagine a state of mind without illusions at all? How that would be? Can you just imagine? It says, picture this. It says, try to picture what it would be like to have that moment. Which moment? Where there is no error in your mind. What would that feel like? What would that look like? For just one moment, it says, try to picture it. Try to picture what it would be like to have that moment be extended to the end of time, into eternity. Then let the sense of quiet that you felt be multiplied 100 times, and then be multiplied another 100 times. It said, and now you have a hint, not more than just the faintest intimation of the state your mind would rest in when the truth has come. Without illusions, there could be no fear, no doubt, no attack. When truth has come, all pain is over, for there is no room for transitory thoughts and dead ideas to linger in your mind. Truth occupies our minds completely, liberating us from all beliefs in the ephemeral. They have no place because the truth has come and they are nowhere. They cannot be found, for truth is everywhere, forever now. And so, again, truth will correct all errors in our mind. And this is the lesson that we are going to focus on throughout today from Workbook Lesson 107. And now we move over to Workbook Lesson 108. To give and to receive is one in truth. In this review, we will forgive all things today when we embrace this idea that giving and receiving is one truth, or one and the same, or one act of love. It says we will forgive all things today, that we may learn how to accept the truth in us and come to recognize our sinlessness. And come to recognize our sinlessness. So in the idea for today that giving and receiving is one in truth, is so important that we realize this, that there are no opposites. This promotes the idea that, like in heaven there are no opposites. In love, there are no opposites. In reality, there are no opposites. And so the natural idea of giving and receiving is that one can only receive at someone else's loss. And that's not true. It says that vision depends upon today's idea. The light is in it, for it reconciles all seeming opposites. There are no opposites. This world is built on what? Polarity or opposites, up and down, in and out, white, black, big, small, short, long. Everything in this world, remember now, this world is built on the idea of separation. So in the idea of separation, there are opposites. So everything in this world has opposite. But this world is not reality. In heaven, there are no opposites. There's only love. Love has no opposite. There's only abundance. Abundance has no opposites. There's no scarcity. In heaven, there's only life. There's no death. In heaven, there's only clarity, certainty. There's only health. There's no opposites in heaven. A world of opposites is a man-made idea or a man-made world that comes out of the belief in separation. So when we understand this, that giving and receiving are one in truth, we understand that one cannot lose through his giving, and one cannot increase by the loss of someone else in their receiving. That giving and receiving is one, because in this idea of truth, or the idea of oneness, there's only one of us. So what you give to another, you're actually giving to yourself, because in reality, there's only one self. We all share that same self. So the self gives and receives all at the same time. There is no time and space between giving and receiving. But we've been taught that there is time. There's a difference between giving and receiving. That if I give you something, I no longer have it and you do. So you receive that at my loss. Ego idea. It's an ego idea. So this whole idea of receiving and giving, this is a thought of unification, that all things are one. This is the God thought. This is a God idea. This is a God. This is a God operation. Okay? Because there is no opposite. Everything in God are the same. Everything in God, what supports itself. It's self-sustaining. Love is self-sustaining. Oneness is self-sustaining. There is no intrusion. There is no division. There is no two-ness or three-ness. There's only the oneness. So it says, one thought completely unified will serve to unify all thoughts. This is the same saying, one correction will suffice for all correction, or that to forgive one brother wholly is enough to bring salvation to all minds. For these are but some simple cases of one law, which holds for every kind of learning. It is to be directed by the one whom knows the truth. To learn that giving and receiving are the same has special usefulness because it can be tried so easily and seen as true. And when this special case has proved it always work in every circumstance where it is tried, the thought behind it can be what generalized in other areas of doubt and double vision. And from there, we extend and finally arrive at the one thought which underlies them all, that God is one and that we're part of that oneness. And it says, today we will attempt to offer peace to everyone and see how quickly peace returns to us. Light is tranquility, and in the peace is vision given us that we can see. So to give and to receive are one in truth. So we will receive what we are giving immediately. So in reality, when we understand this, when we understand that giving and receiving is the same, God so loved the world that he gave. Jesus said, as much as you give to anyone, you give to me, because he understands that we're all one. When we understand this, we would no longer have fear of giving. We would no longer be the hoarders of things, thinking that if we give it away, we're not going to have it. That is an ego idea. To give is to receive, because it is one act of love. Very simple. Giving and receiving is one act of love. We need to learn this. We need to practice this today in our practice period. So, as you go through your day, remember the two practices, the two ideas that we're going to practice today is truth will correct all error in my mind from Workbook Lesson 107. And to give and to receive is one in truth. So, as you go through your day, these are the ideas that we're going to remember each hour and practice and share as we interact with others. Thank you so much for being with me today. And this is a great day. This is the one and only day that there is. Thank you so much. We'll see you on tomorrow. Bye-bye.